Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Slow English podcast. I hope you are having a wonderful day. If this is your first time listening, thank you for joining me. If you are one of my regular listeners, welcome back. Today, I want to share one of the most exciting experiences of my life. I am going to tell you about my trip to New York City. Before I start, let me ask you a question. Have you ever dreamed of visiting a famous city? Maybe you have always wanted to visit Paris, London, Tokyo, or Dubai. For me, that city was New York. Since I was a child, I watched many movies that took place in New York City. I saw the tall skyscrapers, buildings, busy streets, and yellow taxis. Every time I watched those movies, I said to myself, one day I will go there. Many years later, that dream finally came true. Everything started one morning when I received an email from my company. I had a few weeks of vacation, and I decided that this was the perfect time to travel. I opened my laptop, searched for flights, compared prices, and finally bought a ticket to New York City. I was so happy. For the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about my trip. Every evening after work, I watched travel videos about New York. I read travel blogs and made a list of places that I wanted to visit. My list became longer and longer every day. I wanted to visit Times Square. I wanted to walk in Central Park. I wanted to see the Statue of Liberty. I wanted to cross the Brooklyn Bridge, and of course, I wanted to eat real New York pizza. A few days before my flight, I started packing my suitcase. At first, I thought it would be easy, but then I realized that I wanted to take everything with me. I packed t-shirts, then I packed jackets, then I packed another jacket, just in case. I packed comfortable shoes because I knew I would walk a lot. I packed my camera, my phone charger, headphones, sunglasses, and even a small notebook. I like writing about my trips, so I wanted to remember every special moment. The night before my flight, I couldn't sleep very well. I was too excited. I kept looking at the time every hour. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I was still awake. At 3 o'clock, I was still thinking about my trip. Finally, I fell asleep for only a few hours. When my alarm rang early in the morning, I jumped out of bed immediately. I took a quick shower, had a simple breakfast, checked my passport one more time, and called a taxi to the airport. During the taxi ride, I looked out of the window and smiled. This is really happening, I thought. When I arrived at the airport, there were already many travelers. Some families were saying goodbye to each other. Some business travelers were drinking coffee while checking their phones. Children were running around with their parents. Everyone had a different destination. After checking in, I walked slowly through the airport. I bought a bottle of water and a sandwich because I knew the flight would be long. Finally, it was time to board the plane. I found my seat near the window. I always choose the window seat because I love looking outside. A few minutes later, the plane started moving. Then it became faster and faster. Suddenly, we were in the air. I looked down and watched the buildings become smaller and smaller. It was an amazing feeling. During the flight, I watched a movie, listened to music, and sometimes just looked through the window at the clouds. They looked soft, almost like mountains made of cotton. After several hours, the pilot made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing in New York in about 20 minutes. My heart started beating faster. I looked outside again. Slowly, I could see the city. There were hundreds of buildings, long bridges, wide rivers, cars moving like tiny insects. Everything looked incredible from the sky. When the plane landed, everyone clapped quietly. I smiled because I was finally in New York. I followed the other passengers through the airport. The airport was huge. There were signs everywhere, and people from many different countries were speaking different languages. After passport control, I picked up my suitcase and walked outside. The first thing I noticed was the sound. Cars, buses, people talking, police sirens, taxi drivers calling customers. The city was alive. I took a deep breath and looked around. There they were, the famous yellow taxis. I had seen them hundreds of times in movies, but now they were right in front of me. I quickly got into one. The driver smiled and said, "Welcome to New York. Is this your first visit?" "Yes," I answered with a big smile. "You're going to love this city," he said. As we drove toward my hotel, I couldn't stop looking through the window. Every street looked interesting. There were coffee shops on almost every corner. People were walking quickly with cups of coffee in their hands. Some were riding bicycles. Others were walking their dogs. Some musicians were playing music on the sidewalks. Everything happened so fast. The driver told me that New York never really sleeps. At first, I thought he was joking, but later, I discovered that he was right. After about 30 minutes, we arrived at my hotel. It wasn't a luxury hotel, but it was clean, comfortable, and in a great location. The receptionist welcomed me with a friendly smile. She gave me the key to my room and wished me a pleasant stay. When I entered the room, I placed my suitcase near the bed and looked out of the window. I could see tall buildings all around me. People were still walking outside. Cars kept moving. The city seemed full of life. I sat on the bed for a few minutes. I could have taken a nap because I was tired after the long flight. But I said to myself, no, I didn't come all the way to New York to sleep. So I changed my clothes, grabbed my camera, put on my most comfortable shoes, and walked outside. My adventure had finally begun. And honestly, I had no idea that the next few days would become some of my happiest memories of my life. But that is a story for the next part of our podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Take your time, keep practicing your English every day, and remember that every big adventure starts with one small step. See you in part 2. Goodbye.